Hello, hello, hello. My name is Nakia. Welcome to my channel. You know what we're here for. We are here to discuss Survive the Night by Riley Sager. And I have things to say. So let's just talk about it. All right, so in case you know nothing about the book, Survive the Night is about a young lady named Charlie who is looking to get a ride home. She's staying at college and she goes to the little community board, whatever, on campus. This takes place in the early 90s, I believe. And she goes to a little bulletin board looking for someone to share a ride with her. And she meets this young man named Josh who's there. And he's like, "Oh, you looking for a ride? I'm going that way. I can give you a ride." And she's just like, "Oh, okay." We also learned that her roommate Maddie was killed by the campus killer. There's supposed to be this killer on the loose who's killed some women on campus. Her roommate Maddie is one of them. So she's dealing with trauma from that. She also lost her parents to a car crash. So she's just got some things she's dealing with. As she's on this drive with Josh, some strange things happen. He won't let her see in the trunk. And then through conversations they have, she starts to think he could be the campus killer. And she's stuck in this car with him. So how can she survive the night? Let's get into the review, shall we? I had a roller coaster with this book. Started off chugging along. Started off kind of slow for me. In the beginning, Charlie starts talking about Maddie a little too much for me. The roommate that died, I was like, oh Lord, here we go again. This is going to be like The Maidens. I don't want to keep hearing about her dead roommate. But then it started to move along. And once she got to the part where she gets in the car with Josh to go on the drive, that is where, for me, the ride took off. And it was just so intense. It was such a page turner. Like I said, the tension between them two, the conversations they were having. And then there's an interesting little twist to this story. Charlie, after her parents died in a car crash, she starts dealing with things by seeing movies play out in real life because she's a big movie buff. She gets into movies because of her grandma Norma. That is what they bond over after her parents die. So she just becomes like obsessed with movies. And she starts to picture things in real life play out as a movie. And so sometimes she's not sure. It's like daydreaming for her. That is an interesting spin on this story because she sort of becomes an unreliable narrator. We're not sure sometimes what's real and what's this movie that she sees sometimes when she goes in and out. There are some situations they get into and things. And like I said, this just was so intense for me. I was surprised because I just was not expecting that much. The way it started off, I really didn't think I was going to be that into it, but it just was a page turner. Also, the chapters are very short, like 4 or 5 pages, which also keeps it moving along. And then we get to the twist to the book towards the end. I will say I am going to do a spoiler portion because there are some things that I just need to talk about that I can't talk about without getting into spoilers. So I will leave a timestamp for that part of the video. You don't have to watch that if you don't want to. I'm going to keep this spoiler free. But yeah, so when we get to the twist, that is where I start to get like, where are we going with this? They go to a diner. They meet this woman named Marge. She factors into the story. I'm not going to spoil anything. But once she comes in, there was still some tension for me. But then when we get a little further along in the story with her, that is where things started to take a wrong turn for me. I was able to predict who the campus killer was. This one, because there weren't that many characters, it wasn't that hard to figure out for me. But the turns we took along the way just didn't necessarily work for me. You have to suspend disbelief for this book, I will just say. There is a twist that comes at the very end, like the last 2 pages that kind of explain some of these things that are unrealistic, but it's still just, I just wasn't crazy about that part. The killer, their motivation just really didn't work for me. It just felt like a Lifetime movie where it just was cheesy. If you like Lifetime movies, nothing wrong with that. My mother loves Lifetime movies, but she knows they're cheesy. If you watch them, you know they're cheesy. And that's what this book reminded me of. It was just good until we got to the end. But I gave it 3 stars. I still was entertained. I would still recommend it. It was entertaining. I wasn't mad when I finished it. I just was kind of like, why? Why did it have to end like that? It was laughable at the end for me. So, like I said, you can go watch other reviews. You can read other reviews on Goodreads. A lot of people had things to say. I feel like majority of people were not happy with this book, but some loved it. I'm in the middle. Like I said, I was entertained. It wasn't the worst. I'd say so far, I've only read Lock Every Door, Home Before Dark, and Survive the Night. So for me, it would be Lock Every Door, Survive the Night, and then Home Before Dark. So it's not the worst, but definitely not the best. So now we'll get into the spoiler portion because I have way more to say that deal with spoilers. So I'm sorry. You can jump to the wrap up so you can hear the last thoughts that I have to say. But if not, thank you for watching and subscribe, please, for more content. But now let's get into the spoiler portion. Okay, so I just have a few things to say that have to do with spoilers. Okay, so Charlie and Josh stop at this diner because Josh says they need to stop and get something to eat. And they get inside, as I said, they meet Granny Marge. And Charlie steps outside to make a phone call her boyfriend Robbie because she told him she would stop and call him on the road to let him know how things were going. And they had code phrases they were going to use to let him know whether things were going okay or not. I don't really remember what the code was for if things were going well, but if things were not going well, she was supposed to say we had to take a detour. So she ends up saying that to him. We had to take a detour. He starts flipping out on the phone. He's like, what's going on? Where are you? And Josh had followed her outside the restaurant. He had to get some fresh air, but he's just standing there listening. So she's like, oh, we just stopped to get some food and we're at such and such diner. And then he's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, but I gotta go. So her and Josh go back in the restaurant. Meanwhile, Robbie calls the police and asks them to go check on her. So while Charlie and Josh are sitting in the restaurant, Marge realizes something's not right. And during the book, we switch from Charlie's POV to everyone else. We go to Robbie's POV, Josh's POV, and Marge. So when we get to Marge's POV, she realizes something doesn't seem right with them. So she's like, I need to try to talk to her. So she spills tea on her or coffee on her or whatever. Charlie goes to the bathroom to clean off her clothes. Marge follows her in the bathroom and is like, is everything okay? Because you seem like you're not comfortable with this guy you're with. Charlie tells her, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Marge tells her, well, women have to stick up for each other, look out for each other. So Charlie thinks that means she needs to take care of Josh herself and try to kill him so he can't kill any more women. Because she thinks if she stays there with Marge, he's going to go off and go kill some more women and she'll never be able to live with herself. I was so frustrated when she did that. I was like, are you kidding me? That was number one. Number two, a police officer shows up because Robbie called, remember? The police officer shows up and was like, we got a call about someone in distress. Is everything okay here? Charlie again says, yeah, everything's fine. I was like, oh my God. But I know some people would have stopped reading. I was frustrated, but I was just like, okay, I got to know how this is going to go. It added to the experience though. It added to the entertainment. So I kept reading. So Charlie and Josh end up paying the bill, whatever, getting back in the car, going on the road. As they're on the road, a deer runs out in front of the car. They end up swerving to avoid the deer. And then Charlie takes it upon herself. At this point, she had taken a knife from the diner. So she stabs Josh, runs all the way back to the diner. The diner's closed, but Marge is inside. So Marge opens the door and is like, are you okay, Charlie? And Charlie's like, oh, I need help. She has his blood on her. So she's like, I need help. And then Granny Marge drugs Charlie. And then this is when I was like, okay. We find out that Granny Marge is Maddie, the roommate's grandma, and that she hired Josh. Josh is a bounty hunter. She hired him to bring Charlie to her so she could torture her into giving her information about who Maddie's killer is. Charlie is the last person to have seen Maddie alive with the man who they believe killed her. Marge is sick with stage 4 cancer. So, okay, she drugs Charlie, drags her to the car, takes her to this abandoned chalet or some big mansion place. I picture like The Shining. I don't even know. Drags her out the car, into the building, ties her up to a chair, and starts to try to question her, interrogate her. But again, she's sick with stage 4 cancer. So this is when I was like, what the hell? There's even a point where Charlie gets loose and her and Marge tussle. And Marge is able to drug her again. And I was just like, what? How? Okay. So after Robbie called the police, he decides to get in the car and go to try to find Charlie. So he gets to the diner and he just happens to get there when Marge is putting Charlie in the car. So then he decides to follow Marge to the location. Josh also is fine after he gets stabbed. He's okay. He also drives to the location. So when we get to the location, like I said, Marge and Charlie get in a tussle. Josh ends up coming in and trying to help Charlie. So then she's sorry for thinking he was the killer. She realizes he's not, because of course Marge tells her everything. So then Marge had some kerosene lamps that she wanted to put around for the ambiance. And one falls over, a fire starts, and then they have to run out the building. At this point, Marge tells Charlie to just kill her, to take her out of her misery, because she's just miserable because Maddie's dead. Like, she was like a daughter to her, and then she's already dying anyway. So she's like, just kill me. And of course, Charlie's not gonna do that, but she leaves her there to burn in the fire. So then they have to get out because the fire's starting. Robbie comes and he's like, we gotta go. So they get in the car. Charlie's driving because Robbie ends up getting shot by Marge or whatever. And so they get in the car. They're in Robbie's car. The glove compartment falls open because Charlie backs into a car or whatever, because she hasn't driven in forever. And when the glove compartment falls open, a ring box falls out. And she's like, oh my God, he's going to propose. Or was he going to propose? I don't know. I don't know if I want this. So she picks up the ring box and Robbie's like, wait. As soon as he said that, I was like, he's the killer. Because if it wasn't Granny Marge, it wasn't Josh, he's the only one left, and that was part of the problem. There were no other characters, so it was like, it's only him. But I just felt like it just did not work, because for me, there were no signs, no nothing that he was the killer, and it just came out of left field. So she opens up the ring box, and there are teeth inside, because that was one of the things the serial killer did, was he took a tooth from his victims. Okay, so the teeth are inside, and she's like, what are you doing with this? Okay. And so she's like, she realizes after she asks him, because he don't answer, she's like, but why Maddie of all people? And he basically was like, because I couldn't stand her. So we find out his motivation for killing these women was just, he just picked women he just didn't like. He couldn't stand Maddie because she was loud and obnoxious. And then there was some girl he killed when he was young because she made fun of him or something. I don't even know. And then there was like 2 women in between that he just didn't like, whatever. And then he even tells Charlie that when I met you, I wanted to kill you. But your thing with movies just made you special. And then I realized I liked you, and then I fell in love with you and I want to marry you. And she's like, no, you're crazy. They end up getting into an accident or something. I think she purposely drives the car off. I don't even fully remember that part. All I know is she ends up handcuffing Robbie to the car because she had handcuffs from earlier when Josh was going to handcuff her. And they go into a river or something. I don't even know. She leaves him to drown in the car. But before she gets out, she takes his tooth because she wants to show Granny Marge that she took care of business. This is just, like I said, where the story just fell apart for me. It started with Granny Marge having superhuman strength with stage 4 cancer. And then when Robbie was the killer, but his motivations just were, like I said, it just reminded me of a cheesy Lifetime movie. Just like, I killed those women because I couldn't stand them. Like, what? And then the last 2 pages, it was pretty much the epilogue, but it didn't say that, but it was all in italics, was we find out that this whole story was a movie. Charlie was at a screening for a movie about her experience. The stuff did happen, but we're getting the movie version that's exaggerated. So that could explain Granny Marge's superhuman strength. But that just also was just like, really? A movie? Wah, wah. Like, it was okay, but just, So we find out the things that were exaggerated, like they weren't at a chalet, they were at some like rickety old motel, and just, no. But it ended with us also finding out that Charlie ends up marrying Josh, the bounty hunter, who kidnapped her and took her to Granny Marge, because that actually did happen. But they fell in love on that drive and they get married, so there you have it. So yeah, like I said, that wraps up my review of Survive the Night. As I said, I gave it 3 stars. It was like 2.5, 3, but I was just like, we'll go with 3 because it was good. I enjoyed it. But at the end, like I said, just things just did not work for me, and it just got stupid, just pretty much is what I got to say. It just did not seem well plotted out compared to Lock Every Door. That one I really enjoyed, and this one just was not up to par. So yeah. Hope that helps if you want to read it, if you're not sure. But yeah, there you go. Those are my thoughts. I know you guys been waiting, and now you know. So again, you can let me know in the comments if you read this book, what you think, if you plan on reading it, all that good stuff. If you're a Riley Sager fan, if you don't like him, let me know in the comments. I will love to hear it. And that is all for this video. So Until next time, snuggle up in your hideaway with a good book. Better than this one. I'm just kidding. Unplug as much as possible. Be kind to all kind, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.